Plato's Republic is our fourth and final section on Plato. It is the book that he wrote that shows the perfect ideal form of government. So, Plato was the first philosopher to come up with a political theory or a plan, a recommendation for what the ideal, remember the theory of forms, the ideal or the perfect form of government. Now, Athens was often connected in thoughts with Sparta. Sparta, the 300 movie. Sparta spent all of their time developing the ability in schools to make students into the best soldiers possible. Plato wanted to flip that and look at a way, instead of just making people into the best warriors, soldiers, what if we made them into the best people? How would we go about doing that? How would we go about developing in each person the capacity to achieve eudaimonia, the good life? What would government have to be like? That's what the Republic tried to examine. Tyranny naturally arises out of democracy. We talk about democracy being a great thing in the democratic process. Well, Plato hated democracy. He thought that it was masses ruling, it was rule of the unwise. Why should we listen to everybody's view on something when obviously many people are not intelligent enough to make smart decisions? Plato said, especially that in his example, was that democracy was not good because look what happened to Socrates. Socrates was put to death because he corrupted the minds of the youth, but he did no such thing, but the people thought he did. Once again, this is rule by the masses. Plato felt that democracy is really anarchy. It's no rules at all. So he would be somebody who was advocating for a different sort of ruler than one who would be elected or selected by the people. The price good men pay for indifference to public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. Indifference meaning not caring, and there might be a little bit of truth to this. You look at, generally speaking, the people who try to go into political office. Are they doing it because they want to help the society, or are they doing it for their own ambition and self-serving? And many people are indifferent to public affairs, meaning the Board of Education in a town, for instance. That's where decisions are made. Many people will bitch and complain about the decisions, but their indifference is them never taking part in the actual public affairs and the policies being made. I'm not saying by any means that the Board of Education is ruled by evil men, but just as a sake of discussion, better to be involved than to let whoever gets involved cause problems. So the Republic itself. One of the interesting things I want to get to right at the top there, the second line, the ideal state is authoritarian and aristocratic. Authoritarian state, when you think of, Stalin and Hitler were authoritarian, totalitarian leaders, and aristocratic means favoring more the rich. Usually those two concepts right off the top, kids tend not to like Plato's Republic. But if you look a little bit deeper, you'll see some definite, especially from when it was made, some excellent points that he brought, even if they're controversial today. So the ideal state, he said that our society is broken in, or the Greek society, Athens society, was broken into three different parts, which coincidentally break into the three parts of the tripartite soul. He said at the top, you've got your philosopher kings, and we'll talk about what that means in a second. But those are the people in the chariot example who are driven by the wisdom of their head. They are the charioteer. And then you've got your warriors, the people with the courage, the white noble horse who are going to right every wrong. Those are our soldiers. And then the masses, most people, they are the people who are powered by desires, by appetites. What does that mean? Well, the workers, they want to eat, and now in society, they also have hunger for material possessions. This desire, this appetite, will keep them working. And this was his form of government. There was not a lot of movement between groups. The philosopher kings, the intelligent people, would be at the top of this triangle. What do you all think of this? So, right at the top, the philosopher kings. They are the most intelligent. They understand what education should be, what society should be, what justice is about. They're not selfish. They're not egotistical. You don't have to worry about them taking bribes. Plato said that him and others like him, the philosophers, should be the kings. They should be doing the ruling. Some people dislike this because they think it's kind of pretentious and, oh, you're the smart guy, so you should rule. But then again, it makes a little sense to have the intelligent people rule. And interesting enough, women did play a role in society way back in ancient Athens. So, as we get into a discussion, Plato said that one of the problems with society way back when was the wrong type of heroes. People were looking up to and using as a role model for people for the wrong reasons. Is this true today? Who should our heroes be? Now, if I ask the class, who are your heroes? It's great when I hear somebody say mom or dad or grandpa. Those are excellent heroes. And then the next group of heroes that comes up is interesting. Now, in today's society, doctors, nurses, and Carlos. I just found this interesting. Obviously, in the era of COVID, Carlos, that frontline essential worker bagging your groceries, does play a big role and maybe is a little more heroic than we thought. But are these the people that we actually look to as heroes? Or is it people like Gronk? Now, the guy on the left throwing the beer down, wearing a mock UFC WWE belt, that is Gronk. Rob Gronkowski, who could catch a piece of old, deflated pig carcass very effectively. He's one of the best football players in NFL history for the Patriots, and he's known for being a bit of a meathead. And now he's going to make lots and lots of money doing television shows and commercials and Tide Pods and the rest. Why do we look up to people like that rather than people who are the doctors and the nurses and the firemen, etc., etc.? Is that a problem with our society's values? Plato felt the most admired people should be the ones who are known for their public service, who are trying to help others, who are known for their modesty, who dislike fame, who have wisdom and experience. So, controversial theories in the Republic. And this is where I usually get kids yelling at me. First, Plato said that we should have common wives and common children for the philosopher kings. Now, what does this mean? This means that the kids are going to be raised collectively. Individuals have children, and then these children are put into the group of children who are now educated by everyone. The design is to sever the specific family tie between me and my direct offspring. If we sever that family tie, in other words, thinking of the allegory of the cave, if we just start from day one, where once the kid is born, they are put with the 12 or 120 kids, and they are collectively raised, that would take away that mother-child bond, which obviously is a hateful thing for most, but would it create more allegiance to the state, the community, to Athens? In other words, your allegiance wouldn't be to your dad, it would be to your state, to Athens, because you don't have that specific one-to-one bond. Now, kids hate this. He also says, maybe with a little more truth, that marriage is not necessary for the ideal government. He said that it was actually the natural enemy. Once again, if you've got a family group, meaning you and your spouse and your kids, you're going to look at that group as being the top thing. Where Athens, in the view of Plato, he wanted to have Athens as that top thing. So if we can get rid of marriage, if we can collectively raise the children and sever that bond, then they would have more allegiance to Athens, and then they would look to help others rather than just helping their small little nuclear family. Next, Plato said that we should, as we are going to raise our offspring collectively, we should bring back, or we should start eugenics. I just said bring back. Eugenics is breeding with the best specimen. It's kind of what Hitler talked about. In other words, this strapping, intelligent individual should be matched up with this also intelligent individual, and then they should have offspring. As a result, we're going to strengthen the gene pool by not letting people who are not the best specimen have children. And who would be the best specimens? Well, those would be the philosopher kings. Now, I'm not saying that the philosopher kings are going to have a harem just popping out with kids, but they, ultimately, only healthy seed must be sown. Well, people hate this, and obviously so. Hitler talked about this. If you wanted to have a strong Third Reich of Nazi Germany, they needed the best quality clay, if you will. And so the best genes we should breed in that sort of scientific way to have the best possible offspring. While this is obviously, quote unquote, sick and wrong, would it result in the best possible society? Other than the whole, blood incest causing lots of deformities down the road thing. Controversial theories in the Republic, and I have a picture of NWA popping out. All right, so Plato felt that art is so important, it can shape our character so much that we must control it. We must censor it. Now, that's crazy to people, the idea of censoring art. But if you look back, historically, NWA was a rap group from the late 80s, early 90s. They had a song about the police, which was not a very good song, a very happy song in the eyes of the government. And the government kind of tried to censor them, shut down concerts if they played this concert. Now, 20-something years later, when we're going through the Black Lives Movement, you see that same sentiment brought up again. It was a message that came out 20 years ago that still festers today. Now, Plato felt that art was so influential, it can shape people. In fact, when rap music came out, NWA specifically, you saw a lot of people walking around with the black hats on, that sort of look. And think about rap music or popular music styles. How much, if Ariana Grande wears something, or, insert your country music star here wears, a new cowboy hat or what have you, how influential is that? Plato felt that we needed to be aware how influential art was, and we needed to make sure they were putting out good messages because they're going to be influential. So therefore, he felt that artists should work under the government. The philosopher king should tell the artist, here is what you should paint. Here is what you should draw. Here's what you should write your poems or plays about. And if the philosopher kings gave them the right ideas, then they could make these art forms that were going to become popular among the people, and we'll have a better society. This makes so much sense unless you're an artist or you're somebody who wants to think for yourself. Art, as seen by Plato, was a type of propaganda advertising for the good. Now, it's not saying that necessarily every painting would say, like, drink milk or something along those lines in terms of propaganda from the state, but think about the art that we have. I mean, in a way, video games are art, and the single best-selling video game in history is Grand Theft Auto, which I'm sure many of you have played. And the idea of this game is you can get bonus points by running over the prostitute and hitting the passerby with the bat. This is a crazy concept that a video game to be played, and it's something that it's reinforcing. Kids will argue, well, it's just it's good fun. I'm getting it out of my system. I hope you don't have these things in your system, and you must relieve them by running over passerbys with your car. But the idea that art is influential can't be argued, and the fact that censorship would create a better message going out is also true. And finally, when we talk about controversial theories, Plato felt that private property should be done away with. Because when you think about it, all of the wars we have, all of the fighting, all of the conflict, jealousy, comes from greed and desire for what other people have. Plato felt in our society, if we could say, we don't need anybody hoarding stuff, we don't need private property, if everybody shared, we would have a great happy society. And of course here I hit you with the hammer and sickle of communism, because communism uses this same concept. The idea in true communism versus Russian or Chinese communism, Russian and Chinese communism is everybody is equal, equally poor, except for the government who is above them. Well, Plato's theory isn't talking about that. At the same time, most people would argue that communism was not a system whereby people will achieve because their motivation is taken from them. Most people work because they want cool stuff. and that cool stuff is the private property. So, write journals on your thoughts on the Republic, on the controversial theories, and your views on them. Be kind. Everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle.